Now, I want to talk about something that has shocked me this morning, although I shouldn't really be surprised at all. Disappointment is another word that springs to mind. I want to talk, and this is in the papers today, I want to talk about a man who was lying on the floor of a McDonald's restaurant in distress for 3 minutes before anybody even thought about trying to help him. Now, the man who was 47 fell from his wheelchair onto the floor after he started choking on a piece of meat. And the CCTV shows that people were completely ignoring him as they went past him to order their food. Some were even stepping over him to get to the counter. Mike Orr had spina bifida, he had alcohol problems, he was a heavy smoker. Eventually, 3 people did go over and tried to remove the food from his mouth. Sadly, he died. Now, the coroner on the case said that the excess alcohol can impair swallowing and result in choking. Nobody saw he was in trouble until it was too late. The verdict was accidental death. Question is, though, are you surprised that nobody went to help him? What would you have done in that situation? Are people now too embarrassed to help somebody in distress? He was lying on the floor for 3 minutes. Why don't we immediately go to help somebody if we see them in trouble? Shouldn't that be a part, really, of human nature? Are you surprised? Are you disappointed? Are you upset that a fella could lie on the ground for 3 minutes and people just carry on ordering their French fries? 01642 225511. If texting is more your thing, 81333, start your message with the word tease. Let's talk to Mel Fletcher first of all, who is a social commentator. Good morning to you, Mel.
Good morning, Mike.
What is the word you would use then to describe this human behaviour?
Well, I think you touched on it. Shocking is the word I would use. At the same time, though, as you suggested, not completely surprising. I think we have to be careful. First of all, we don't take isolated events and read into them a trend. That's the first thing. But, and what I'm about to say isn't in any way meant as an excuse for those who just walk on by. But I think there are at least 2 factors involved here, if I might. One is in the age of social mobility and social alienation, we have the sheer size of population, the fact that our families are so spread out now, friendship networks are spread out. It combines to leave us feeling less engaged with people in our immediate vicinity. And I think that's exacerbated too in the wake of social media, because we're spending so much time with our human contact on handheld devices, so the real world environment captures less of our attention, which means that reaction times go down when something does go wrong in the real world. In fact, in the US recently, there's some research suggesting that social media and the internet generally can be implicated in the rise of levels of self-obsessive behaviour in society.
So we're just in our own zone, in our own world then for more of the time now?
Yeah, we're more in a bubble. And I think the other factor that I would raise here is that in this disconnected age, there seem to be questions about when it is appropriate for us to engage with a person in need. Now, the case we're talking about today is unusual in the sense that a man was actually dying while this was happening. So, and that's a terrible thing. But I think in general terms, we sometimes fall into the trap of what I call the complexity trap. The sheer volume of information we have to process in a day leads us sometimes to conclude that life is more complicated than it really is. So when we're faced with a situation like this one in Gloucestershire, some people's minds will fill with questions like, when's it appropriate, ethical or legal to actually get involved? Is it my job? Is it my role? Will I get in trouble if I do? Am I doing more harm than good? Again, I'm not excusing what happened in this instance, which is shocking, but I think these are factors in broader society that we should think about.
Right. When did this change then? Because if I think back to, if this had happened in the 1970s, somebody fell out of their wheelchair and started to choke, everybody would have rushed over.
Well, I think in many places it's true to say, Mike, people still would. This is an incident that is tragic.
Do you think so?
I'm not going to say that it's completely isolated. I do think, as I've said, that there's a breakdown in the way we see the real world around us and our place in it and our role and responsibility in it. I think it began to change in part when society became a lot more mobile, so people did spread out. And so in order to keep in touch with those close to us, we needed to engage more in electronic means. So we started using electronic media to do that. Now we have smartphones to do that. And that means that we're spending less time engaged with people in our real environment. Thankfully, there are still good news stories that come out about people who actually do get involved, like the 2 men that took on the attacker in the London Tube recently. That's a good instance of people recognising their responsibility. But stories like this one remind us we just can't afford to opt out and treat the social media world as a little bubble in which we can disengage from the real world.
Mel, thank you very much. Thank you, Mel Fletcher.